Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to your Thursday edition of the Post Up with David Grubb, right here on Boot Crew Media. I, of course, am your host, David Grubb. And today we're going to get you ready for that first Pelicans preseason series of the season, this historic series in Australia between the New Orleans Pelicans and a couple of teams from the National Basketball League of Australia. We'll talk about that in just a second. But before we start, I'm going to go ahead and make this announcement, and I'm going to put it up later. But I am moving. I have taken a position with the company in Michigan, and as of next week, I will be heading up there to take that job. It's really hard to do this, and I'm not going to be ending this show. We're still going to do it. We're just going to change some of the logistics for it, just to make sure that I can continue to do it, because it's something that I wanted to continue and talking. And I got to thank Justin and Ross for this. They, have figured out a way for me to keep doing this, because I wanted to maintain some connection to both the world of sports and to this community. I've been back in New Orleans since the year 2000. I came back. I had been living in Massachusetts. I came back in 2001. Excuse me. And I have been here since I went through Katrina, came back, and over the last 20 years, I just want to talk a quick bit about what I was able to do in that time and why it's so hard to leave the city. After Katrina, I came back and I worked with the Algiers Charter School Association, which is now, very different, inspired Nolan. That's for another day. But, I helped get these schools back on their feet after Katrina. We had 6 schools at the time, including, schools that I went to, including Edna Carr. And that was the hardest, most difficult work I've ever had, but it was also probably the most rewarding thing, because it was so necessary at that time, and dealing with the families who just wanted to come back and enjoy their lives again and try to figure out how to rebuild, and to be in the middle of that in my small way was tremendous. And then continuing on with that and just getting opportunities in education and working at Dillard University and Southern University of New Orleans and working with the Gulf Coast Athletic Conference, and getting my opportunity in 2019 to host Hard to Paint on WODT, and be the first African-American to ever have a daily sports talk show on a major radio station in this city. So that was, incredible for me. And then when the pandemic hit and we had to pivot again to turn Hard to Paint into a podcast and have it become, in its first year, the winner for best podcast by the Louisiana Sports Writers Association, that was humbling. And then just the amount of coverage that I given to LSU football, LSU baseball, basketball, the opportunity that people like Kendra Anna gave me at Crescent City Sports, and then working with so many other local people, all the affiliates that have given me opportunities to come on and talk about different sports things. And my man, Marlon Favorite and CL Nola at Inside the Trenches. But, this isn't the end of the career as far as sports goes, but it's a dramatic shift, and I got to give up things like broadcasting Tulane games and being here for the Pelicans season and having to watch it now on League Pass rather than getting to be in the building every night. But I just want to say thank you really quick to everybody who has watched me or listened to me or read what I've been writing since I started doing these things, and the people who've been consistent in giving me opportunities. And, I hope, I can't do all that right now and list everybody, but they know hopefully that who they are and what they've done. But I just want to thank y'all, in particular the audience, and just how supportive y'all have been, and just how you've lifted me up in times where I didn't know if I should be doing this at all. And I'm really thankful for that. But let's move on and let's talk about more pressing things, and that's basketball with the New Orleans Pelicans. And as we get to this series with the NBL, just want to give you some primers so that when you go into this, you're not going into it blind, that you can have some historical context and understand and what to expect from the Pelicans' first opponents of this 25-26 season. So NBL has been around since 1979. It is the number one basketball league in Australia. It's comprised of 10 teams, 9 of them based in Australia, 1 in New Zealand. It has grown into one of the top 10 basketball leagues in the world, both by competitiveness and just scope. So it has developed this big reputation, and it started really in the 2010s. If you were paying attention to basketball then, guys from America started going overseas, and then high-level Australian prospects started to develop through this program, the Next Stars program. LaMelo Ball was there for a year, Josh Giddey, RJ Hampton. So players have been to Australia to develop. And then the competition level, you would say that, look, there are a number of former NBA players who are over there. There are EuroLeague players who play in the NBL. And so there are players that you may recognize in some of these teams or have been in this league for a consistent level. So the level of competition is competitive. Again, this is one of the top 10 leagues. It's not the NBA, but this is one of the upper tier basketball leagues around the world. And, the crowd size is like a good college game. You're going to get a decent crowd there. You expect from, again, a population that's not particularly huge in Australia, but is a rabid basketball fan base and is growing. And if you look at the connections, I think the first real Australian player that kind of gained notice in the United States was this guy named Andrew Gaze, who played for Seton Hall back in the late 80s and was part of their team that went to the NCAA National Championship game and lost to Michigan in 1989. So, since then, Australia has steadily been sending prospects to the NBA. Andrew Bogut, of course, former number 1 pick, and Steven Adams from New Zealand, and all these, basketball has just continued to grow in that area of the world. If you're looking at how they play the game in Australia, there's more physicality. There's more hand checking, in NBL than there would be compared to the NBA. There's more physicality on defense than would be compared to the NBA. The pace is more of an emphasis on half-court execution, which I think will be good for the Pelicans because they need to prepare how to execute and have discipline on that end of the floor. So that'll be more prevalent in this game. Not that they won't run, but overall in this league, there's more emphasis on execution in the half-court. Quarters are 10 minutes each. So shorter games, much more of a collegiate as far as the time limit goes. So shaving those 8 minutes off makes a little bit more urgency. And then the spacing is not as great because there are not as many elite shooters in this league. So you tend to have more lane clogging defensively. So that'll, again, be adjustment for the Pelicans. And how do they deal with a team that may not be running as many actions that result in 3-point shots? Are they putting the ball on the court more? And are the Pelicans able to stop drives? And then when these Australian teams get into the paint, are they able to defend the rim effectively on those possessions? So those are things you're going to look out. Zion is probably going to they've talked about how they want to deal with Zion Williamson, and they've talked about being brave, and standing out there and taking charges and things like that. I don't think you want to spend your life taking charges. I think, the charges is one of those necessary things that, you should do maybe in high school, but that's about it because you get yourself hurt. But there's going to be a lot of ball pressure. So you'll see how guys like Jeremiah Fears, Jordan Poole, and Jose Alvarado adapt to a lot of ball pressure and how they adjust. And then, the physicality just might be something that guys have to get used to again. I think the younger players who just came out of college might have seen a little bit more physicality and be used to it. But, in the NBA, there's just that whistle is very quick. So, can the Pelicans play through physical defense? We shall see. I think that, that we understand the significance of this overall. This is the first NBA team to ever play games in Australia. This is a enhancement of the relationship between the NBA and Australia, certainly. And as you've seen with the kind of buzz that there's been with the Pelicans over there, that this is really about culture and brand enhancement too for the Pelicans as well. And this opportunity for them to bond. If we're looking at the players on these teams to pay attention to, the Pelicans face the Melbourne United on Friday, and then they play the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix on Sunday. The coaches have talked about their game plans on how they want to deal with Zion Williamson again and what they want to do. I think that's been the focus of their attention, to see what they can do when he's on the court, and then hope that the rest of the game can be as competitive as possible. If you can try to slow down Zion in his minutes, and we'll see how many he plays. I understand that's an effective strategy for a team you've never defended before. build the wall and see what you do and what the Pelicans really want to do to counter that. When you look at Melbourne United, they have some players like Chris Goulding, who shoots the ball pretty well. He is dealing with he's a very solid 3-point shooter, can space the floor and can make some big shots for this team. I think you look at some of the other players, and when you look at this team, there's guys like Dash Daniels who are playing out for this team. He could related to Dyson Daniels' younger brother there. They have some other players. It's going to be a collection of talent. It's not going to be one player dominating the game, and that's the approach here. So I think it's very much like international competition overall. And I think you could see just a lot of different looks. You could see some zone. You could see, you're going to see man-to-man at times. You're going to see zone. You're going to see different types of zone defenses. And I think what they're going to try to do in these games, and for the Pelicans, again, their first two, I think, are your real opportunities to get these guys on the court against a lower level of competition. Then, once it gets into the bench, I think we really want to see how the Pelicans bench responds to these guys. And then when you look for Southeast Melbourne, they go primarily more through the front court with their team. Going to be a little bit more of a low post game, inside out approach. So I think for the Pelicans there, you want to see if this team that has been pretty defensive oriented, but it's also balanced in their attack. That's been their reputation. So you see if the Pelicans can get any advantage on the interior. This would be a good test for guys like Yves Missi, Kevon Looney. Unfortunately, Derek Queen won't be around, but Carlo Makovic. This is a chance for him to test his skills. And so you want to see how the guards match up again physically. You want to see if these teams, the depth of the second units against the Pelicans' second units, and how do they handle those things. And I think that's the most important things to this game. So how the coaches impact this game, what do they try to do to Zion Williamson? That's one angle to look at. Which opponents are going to give the Pelicans the most trouble? Is it going to be when you talk about Phoenix, you look at the experience that they have. They're an experienced team. And then when you look at the United, their versatility on offense and those types of things. And then you're looking at mostly what are the Pelicans going to do as far as their combinations. And that's why when we get to rotations, when you look at preseason games, you're never really concerned about what the final box score looks like. You can get too much into the box score in preseason and start thinking about, this guy's, feeling hot because he's been shooting these. Don't worry about that. Because remember what we got last season was this is the best preseason. These guys all look great. It doesn't really matter. What you're looking for is how do you do the things you do? And how does the coach start revealing who he's looking at? Because you want to see what combinations that Willie Green starts with in both of these games. You want to see who the first players off the bench are. You want to see which combinations he's putting together. And you want to see how much the rookies are getting used and involved, because how much trust does he have in them at this stage? How many minutes does a Micah Peavy get, and who is he playing with? How many minutes does Jeremiah Fears get, and who is he playing with? Does he use Sadiq Bey as a 3-4 in some of these games, or does he use him as a 2-3, as a big 2 defensively? Where's Herb Jones's rotation? What does his minutes look like? And in that starting lineup, you want to see how do they function offensively. If you're going with Jordan Poole, Herb Jones, Trey Murphy, Zion Williamson, and either Missi or Looney, how does Herb fit into that group, and how do they utilize him and get him shots as well as part of the flow of the offense? So when we look at the rotations, I think those are the most important factors when you try to assess what the Pelicans are going to do and what they want to do. When you look forward to this season, you want to see who comes in with energy, particularly on the defensive end. And when you look at the young players, you want to see how do they attack the game. Are they reading it first and then figuring it out? Are they going full steam ahead and attacking downhill? Trying to push tempo and create it, which I think as a bench, that's what you want them to do, is push the tempo. If you're going to make mistakes, make them at full speed. And I think that's what you want to see out of those young players. You want to see them attack. You want to see them be aggressive. You want to see the first unit be on the offensive, but also be a little bit more meticulous. You want to see them commit to running the offense even when they don't have to. Because, you can get away with stuff against teams that have never seen you play. They've got film on the Pelicans, sure. but they've never seen them play. They've never been on the court with these guys. So, yeah, you can get away with those types of things and playing an unfamiliar opponent, but you want to see if the Pelicans remain disciplined in whatever offensive principles that Willie Green has been installing through the first 2 weeks of camp. So those are the subtle things that you want to pay attention to. How aggressive are they on the defensive glass? Are they simply forcing turnovers because the opponent is lazy? Or are they really dogging the ball handlers? For Jordan Poole, you want to see, is he taking care of the basketball? Is he taking good shots? Is he getting other folks involved? How are they utilizing him? Again, it's not a referendum on these things, but you want to see what the instincts are as far as what the principles that have been instituted so far and how the players are responding to them. These are not final judgments. They're 85 games, 3 more preseason games after this first one tomorrow, and 82 games of the regular season to judge what this team is going to be. So it's not all going to be done after a couple of preseason games against a lower level professional league. But with all of this discipline and all these things that the players have talked about and being together this offseason and working hard and understanding each other at this stage, let's see it applied to the actual action on the court. All right. And then as we talk about, I think the other part to watch is who are these guys on the fringe that get an opportunity? And I think game one will be difficult to see those guys because I think this is much more of the one that you want to, the Pelicans want to lean into the guys that they already know. But those guys like Christian Shoemate out of McNeese, a lot of all the two-way guys, who are fighting for minutes, even a Carlo Makovich, because you're trying to prove that you belong to get regular minutes in this rotation. How those guys have something to prove. And I think that's the other part of preseason is what kind of minutes do they get and what kind of real opportunity do they get? And how does this shift? Are the guys with two ways, are they locked in at those spots? Do you feel super comfortable about all of them? Like a Hunter Dickinson? Do you feel like he's a competent person at that other two-way spot in the front court? Or can one of these other players assert themselves and put them in position to get a two-way contract, put themselves in position to steal a roster spot? Who's going to do that? Does Jalen McDaniels stick? He's a guy at the fringe part of his NBA career. He could be here and he could not, and the league will keep moving. This is his opportunity to prove that he still belongs in the league and that, his career is worth saving because, there's always a new person coming in who's 6'8" and can do a little bit of everything. So he's got something to prove. What is he going to do in his minutes? That's the other big storyline that you pay attention to in the preseason. Who's going to emerge from that group and show you some promise? Who can become the next undrafted player from the Pelicans or next diamond in the rough that's found? Be that Najee Marshall, be that Jose Alvarado, be that player there, even a Herb Jones to some degree, that second round, that undrafted player who comes in and makes noise and finds a role on this team. Is there one? We'll find out. All right, that's going to do it for today. Again, like I said, I just want to thank everybody for tuning in and watching the show and supporting me. And it's going to be really hard. It's going to be really hard next week to do these 2 final shows before I head out. But, life changes and we got to roll with it. But I will be, like I said, continue to be a part of Boot Crew and continue to interact with you, the Pelicans fans. So until the next time, until next week, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe button, share, leave your comments and questions below, and follow me on social media at DM Grubb. This has been the Post Up on Boot Crew Media. I'm David Grubb. You're you. Have a great weekend.